So yeah, I'll quickly go through the couple of things that I've been thinking about recently, and I honestly just want to open this up to a bit of a discussion with you guys. So, and I what from all these conversations that we meandering conversations that we have in our community groups, we digress, we talk a lot about a lot of stuff. But this idea of the computational gap in my head has been kind of forming over the last few weeks. And I don't know if anybody knows this comedian, Ronnie Cheng. He has this joke where he talks about like this disproportionate gap that we have in humanity in our technological abilities. Where on, younger generations are like trading digital currencies with AI, 5G, cloud computing in the pocket, whereas older generations really struggle with the concept of right clicking. And this is the spectrum of people that we have on the planet. Like, and the use of technology is so far ranging. And we see this as well in architecture. We clearly see this disparity in architecture with, our more analog ways of creating, leading into our analog ways of creating architecture, leading into CAD and the development of computers, which then shifts into BIM. And we have this really long scale. And there's people working at all scales of this even now. But every major shift within this, creates both winners and stragglers. It stretches out what we do as architects. At each stage, there is this pattern of resistance, like, the paper people at the beginning, the computers are going to ruin architecture. That's not real architecture. Same, CAD people, very reluctant to move to BIM, and so on. Each wave feels very disruptive, but it's really a call to evolve how we think and work. And I think we're living through a much bigger and much more larger divide, and history is just repeating itself when we introduce like computational tools into this as well. The BIM people get upset when we start scripting things, and on one side we have like what I would call manual design representational tools, and on the other we have computational tools. And this gap is big because it really challenges and changes. It's a big leap. It's a big leap, and it challenges and changes how we think as designers, how we have to think as designers. And as an industry, I think we're stuck here, in this like churn between like all of this stuff on the left and all this stuff on the right. We have clients are expecting our clients base these days are expect much, much more than they used to. Clients themselves now can create like AI imagery and concept designs themselves. So what they expect from, even early stages is even higher. Designers probably could be feeling strong resistance from, their employers to use this stuff because it's, we have work to do. We don't have time to retrain. We don't have time to start learning this stuff. We're just going to do what we always have done. And the result is frustration, overwhelm, feeling left behind. And it feels like things are moving faster and faster and faster and faster. Um, and so this little churn that we're in, oh no, I was going to say the human side of this though, and the day to day has never changed. If you still look at whoever's doing the work from the back, it's still just a guy or girl or lady sat at a desk, where it's the canvas has changed. It's now not a drawing board, it's a Grasshopper canvas, but the work remains the same. It's just our tools and tech has increasingly evolved around us, and I think restrict us creatively. So if we just go back to this little diagram, you know, when we have a blank canvas, we have complete design freedom. There is no barrier to entry to this because, well, we have to, I suppose, learn how to draw, and there are techniques and things, but the barrier to entry is very low. And as we move through, our technological advancements through CAD into BIM, we get increasingly restrictive programming. We cannot, we only can design within the realms of those pieces of software because it's been scripted for us. It has been, and there, they're amazing tools, and they allow us to increase our productivity and do lots of amazing things. But that level of craft that we used to have seems to get eroded at each level. Architecture is now just made of blocks and parts, and that can't be adapted. And again, I'm paraphrasing because I know there's a lot of like crossover of all this stuff. So, um, but just in general, this is the pattern that we see. Um, I don't know why I wrote Legoization of architecture. And this is more like I suppose as architects, we're always quite obsessed, not obsessed, but like there's always that thing about, we grew up with Lego, and that being able to build and creative. And which is true. I used Lego. I was obsessed with Lego when I was a little kid. But when I think back, it is quite a restrictive design environment. Can't make curves very well. It's like a window is going to be a certain proportion. As a design environment, when you look back, it's actually pretty restrictive. There's only like four colors. Um, and so this gap that we hit where we need to jump this computational gap where we end up with design freedom again because we are the people programming our systems. And I think in reality we're going to start becoming full circle back around to like design freedoms. It's a skills gap to get from left to right, just as much as it is a philosophical one. But coming back around to what makes architecture a craft-based industry, I think is quite interesting. So in my mind, computation has a new craft, precision, logic, creativity, and computation brings intent and control back to design. We're not just giving ourselves to the programs anymore. So these are two very different canvases with very different technical levels of expertise, but I think they're the same language. They're the language of systems and craft, how we layer up a drawing, how we create those systems is there's a lot of analogs between how we do that computationally in programs like Grasshopper. And so I think this allows architects to do architecture again. I'm okay. Well, no, okay. So let's pause before we go into the elephant in the room, which is I haven't mentioned really AI once, but does anyone have any like comments or like um so far? Does anyone kind of agree, disagree? Is that insightful? Am I just talking nonsense?
I think I totally agree with you,
Hmm.
Jack. The fact that if you're controlling your own thinking process and you're implementing into the tools,
Mm,
it's very strong. And a lot of the tools that are previously out there is, oh, you just follow the commands, this is what it does. And
mm,
no CAD drawing will ever look different than any other CAD drawing,
mm,
except if you put some kind of, layering thing. But this is very different because you can create so many things with your own um, expressions.
mm.
And it does take learning, um,
It
but
does.
that's the key.
Yeah, it
I
does.
agree with you.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Um, No, like you're saying, there's a lot that goes into these, learning this stuff. And I actually, what was quite interesting, what you said, all CAD drawings kind of just look the same, and actually it's the same with Grasshopper scripts. Like, unless you actually know and are really looking, they all just look exactly the same. Um, and I suppose what's interesting then is understanding like that structure, in understanding how things piece together and understanding the system of how you can do that. Because like this script, I don't even know where I pulled it from. The actual visual of the script looks, very similar to lots of other pieces of design. The designs might look completely different as well, but the inherent logics that each of them follow might be quite similar or very similar. And this is how we teach in the clusters and the cluster and the community, how we actually go about doing this. But yeah, I honestly wholly believe it brings us back around in one way or another to some sort of design freedom. But we just need to learn the language. Oh, Um, sorry, go ahead. I don't know who was talking. I have many people on screen now. Oh no.
I
Okay,
could I'll
go
pop in for just a second and just say
go ahead.
something about, professional practice these days. When you start looking around for jobs and things, no longer is it just do you know Revit,
Yeah.
right? That's like saying that you know Microsoft Word, essentially at this point in the profession.
Mm,
So most job postings are now starting to add in other more advanced parts and
mm,
pieces of the profession, like, do you know Rhino? Do you know Grasshopper? Do you know Rhino inside Revit?
mm.
Things of that nature. So, when you were saying the Legoization of architecture, my brain immediately processed it as, if you get a job in an architectural firm and you know Revit, that's great. You're probably going to start doing bathroom details and,
Yeah,
multi-story
yeah.
stairs. And a lot of the time in professional practice as well, they start trying to get things into boilerplate details.
Mm,
And if you have an ability to utilize other tools to then think outside of the typical job process,
mm.
it can not only expedite the design process, it makes for better collaboration potentially. It can open up a lot more avenues for
It
critical thinking.
it can. But I suppose my one of my arguments here is that there is this like confusion and churn here because we know, as savvy designers, we know that we want to do this stuff, but it's quite easy to face resistance from, say, our employers or, you do quite quickly face resistance from people to this stuff. And we have to go out of our way and on our own backs to show people that this is the way forward. So, so yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot, Craig, about this, and so this
Oh yeah.
confusion about where we are, as a kind of industry, I think is really, I know it needs addressing, like, and you're not going to break people out of their ways of working. Some people are always going to work in here. Some people are always going to work here, but but yeah, I think that having that conversation and just educating people and understanding how we can make our lives and work and architecture better, I think is they're important conversations. Uh, anyone else have any
Well, I wanted
comments?
to add like really one point also.
Mm,
It's actually I believe like it's really worrying a lot that this gap I feel, I hope not, but I feel like or it's increasing,
mm,
especially like if you see also there's a lot of contradicts between the market and like what are we doing right now. Like I
mm,
believe okay, computational design, AI and everything, like there are, I don't want to say easy access, more like of course AI, like if you are a computational designer, you want like to also use a AI as tool. We know really how to do it, but also you
mm.
mentioned something very important, that the clients now are getting smarter.
Oh
They
yeah.
know exactly how they want, what are they want actually also to expect, like what are you really going to add to your work. The
Yeah.
thing is, I believe that this problem again, if we go now to reality in the markets, like usually, like because I'm in place like Dubai, so I believe like everyone knows exactly how maybe
Mm,
like developers actually, what are you expecting? I need also to sell more faster and I need to be efficient.
mm,
Where are what how to, computational thinking in a way can help
mm,
me, and how can I like really try to let's say be balanced between my own creativity
mm,
and again turning it into reality, because we
mm,
really would like to see these kind of projects, or let's say our computational thinking. I would like to keep naming it as a computational thinking
mm,
um, as reality. So I don't know where how like there are contradicts a lot, because I believe that us as computational like thinkers or also designers, we are mostly being operating online, try also to to defend the
mm.
computation and thinking more and more, to turn it into a tools that can serve, let's say the real meaning of architecture, which actually
Mm.
like being very very like serving also the human being, like the
Yeah, yeah.
people, while actually the real market is let's say, in a way, going into, again, as mentioned from Craig, like if you do the bathroom, you do it in more details, and you know, like actually how to place it back. We go back to the box, or like, you know, modular designs. So I really hope that we can be more effective in real fields, more and more.
Definitely. So, just as you were talking, my mind started running in like 5 different directions. But because I had a whole thing at some point where we were talking about like you know, architect. This kind of work really for a long time has been solely used for like high-end architects doing like crazy projects. And there's a lot of association with Grasshopper in particular about with you know, impossible forms and impossible architecture. And it's, you know, just for high-end geometry and things of this nature. But what we've seen happening over this past, especially 5 years, but I think really since the inception of Grasshopper, is just this slow filtering of its use case into general architecture. So, and Rhino Inside is Craig just mentioned, you know, is a real powerful way of utilizing all of your skills that you would use to create some crazy piece of architecture. We can now actually use to drive Revit and drive our BIM models in a much more intelligent way. So all of those skills, the same skills that we would use to create a deep facade, we can also use to try to start answering the questions of automating those bathroom detailings, and you know, and just be more intelligent with the way with our time and how we design. The other thing that you mentioned, okay, so I'm going to go into this next point as well, because this kind of stems from something Rana just said as well. And my next point, and this was more like the elephant in the room, which is, okay, you're talking about all this technology, but you haven't really mentioned AI. We've just got like computational design. And I put it as a separate thing because, you know, AI is, and I wanted to be provocative. AI is not the enemy, not until, you know, we get full Skynet and the AI, you know, the AI properly take over. But I wanted to, you know, this is kind of more general. I started writing it to be more general, but then I slipped into just talking about purely about architecture. So I did fall into a bit of a trap. But the reason why it's kind of on its own is because I don't even think we've figured out this scale of things, or how, you know, all these computational tools feed into what we do as designers, and, you know, the nature of architecture. And we haven't even really worked out this level yet. Now we've just thrown in AI tools, which is so far past. And there's huge conversations and questions about the role of the designer now, and where the value is. One of my developer friends the other day, he sent me, you know, they had a project or a site, and he was like, okay, I'm just going to try some AI tools. Within like half an hour, he'd done like, on a specific site, he had done site appraisals, site analysis. It made some forms and made some renders for him. It wasn't good architecture for sure, but it was, you know, he spewed this stuff out as in like, you know, half an hour, or probably wasn't that long, probably an hour. And, you know, the fear is that AI is, you know, is taking over design industries, and, you know, designers feeling like they're going to be replaced by image generators that can create architecture from a few prompts, like my friend did. But I think the threat isn't taking our jobs per se. I think it's taking like what architecture as a big, with a big A is. You know, the threat isn't AI itself; it's a loss of our own profession, and it's a loss of thinking that comes when we let tools do the reasoning for us. So I don't think AI is not like the general problem, but us just losing the ability to think. Because if you know, if you gave me AI tools when I was studying, 100% I would have used them like a lot. And, you know, when my tutors, or, you know, would have questioned me and say, hey, well, you know, is that really what you designed, or is it what the AI designed? I'd be like, yeah, that is what, you know, you know, even at that level, you know, universities and studio levels, we're already handing over too much thinking. You know, architecture isn't language. it's experience. You know, the AIs and large language models work shockingly through language and interpret what we need. And language is really limiting, you know, to express space and feelings and experience is really hard, let alone really hard to interpret as well. So architecture can't just become like a description. We give too much away in that translation. We lose design control. And this Rana just mentioned something about the, you know, almost like the humanity of architecture. You know, we stop designing as humans. We start just designing as descriptors. So like the more provocative question of this is, you know, is it still possible to adequately describe an atmosphere, emotion through just language alone? Or in my mind, you know, it's about drawing and modeling and thinking things through and everything that goes with how we studied architecture. And so the danger is not being replaced, having our jobs replaced. Well, oh, you know, we're smart people. We'll find work doing something. But the danger is that architects just stop thinking spatially, you know, over a longer period. And I'm not sure how many other architects do we just have architects? Show of hands, who is anybody not an architect? Vincent, you're not an architect. What do you do, Vincent?
Sorry, I raised up my arm too fast. I am
Oh,
actually
okay.
an architect.
Okay.
But I do exhibition design and a
Okay.
lot more of furniture and exhibition design, in fact.
And so are are any of these points, like, you know, how do they relate to, say, your furniture design or your set design? Is this are you using AI a lot? Are you using not? Are you scared of it? What's your opinion?
I think we have to learn to work with it in order not to lose our control, as you said.
Mm,
Um, Sometimes for me, it's like browsing on
mm,
Pinterest. It's a sort of inspiration.
mm,
I don't use it literally.
yeah.
I pick some shapes and forms
Mm,
that the AI is giving me, and I make my own creation.
mm. Good. Well,
And
because you're an intelligent, savvy designer. Like, but my worry is that just some people, you know, especially students and young people, they don't want the grind anymore. And people don't want to spend hours and hours and hours making their own design. You know, if they can we can just chat GPT and mid-journey it. Like, you know, I feel you know, the grind, the hard work that we put in as designers is might slowly get eroded if we don't champion this stuff.
yes, it's because um, as mentioned earlier by our colleague, we have to be more and more efficient and
Mm,
more productive.
yeah.
And all the design work is taking time. I love
Mm,
this work. It's the
mm,
work I cherish the most.
mm.
But
Right?
in our schedule, it's hard to fit in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
true.
it's a shortcut. AI is a shortcut. It's a way to gain time.
It is. I love that what you just said then, though, you know, it's your passion. How do you say it? It's your passion, you know, you love doing this work, and the
Yeah.
design work is what, you know, we like. I don't want AI to do it.
No.
But also, you know, I think maybe speed is the key word that in my understanding of what you said is speed. We are required to work too fast, so we have to
Mm,
take shortcuts. We
mm.
can't spend, you know, enough time to think, and maybe our world is just too fast. Maybe that's maybe we need to slow down a bit and get our drawing boards back out.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a world of competition, and
yeah, yeah.
competition is killing us.
Yeah, developers just want something that can be done yesterday, and
Mm,
you know, and it doesn't matter to. I said to my friend, you know, I was like, well, 90. He was like, well, you know, I think there's always still space for architects, and I was like, well, that's because you're an interesting developer who's, you know, clued up about this stuff. 95% of people will not care if it's,
mm.
you know, developers will just run this stuff out, and that is architecture, you know. and we're like, you know, as the passionate designers, we're left with like 5% of the industry because no one cares about good architecture anymore. And that scares me. That I feel we may start losing, you know, the human-centric aspects of design and architecture.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, my wife's saying, okay, well, I can't see the time, so I don't know how long I've been talking. Okay, so I'm going to conclude this at the end. Thank you so much for all your comments. But yeah, closing remarks, and this was just finishing off the bit of chat about AI. You know, so prompt or design. You know, over the next decade, I think architecture universities, really, it's a big choice. You know, like train your architects to prompt or train them to design. I would honestly, if I was running a student group, I would ban AI. I think it's going to make bad architecture and bad architects. Personally, but I'm militant about it. Yeah, I honestly think the future of architecture belongs to those who design with intent, and not just those, and that's with or without AI, and not just those who generate images. So, you know, we can use AI, but we need to use it with intent. And I think it brings us back full circle to control, intent and control in design. We used to have this, and slowly, I think our technology led us away from design control. But now we have this ability with computational design to bring this back into our workflows. So yeah, computational thinking brings intent and control back. AI automates thinking. Computational thinking structures thought. So, you know, we've been forced to define relationships, rules, logic, digital kind of sketching and drawing. Rigor systems, I'm not going to read it all, but yeah, rigor, system thinking, design process. I honestly think all this is imperative so we can work more meaningfully and more intelligently with AI tools. It's not, I don't want this to become, I don't want to seem like I'm very anti-AI. I'm not at all. I just think we need to use AI meaningfully. And we can only do that if we are designing with control and intent. So AI then becomes an amplifier, not the shortcut, which is what we talked about as well. So in a world of instant outputs, computation trains patience, reasoning, and clarity. And, you know, so we have a clickbait world. Critical thinking and reasoning, I think, are more important than ever. And I spelled important wrong. How embarrassing. So on that note, I will leave it there.